Synopsis. That year, during the time I was starving the most in class, a young lady from Keene City suddenly appeared. She seemed a bit unusual. Every time she bought a meal, she would buy 2 portions, then stubbornly force me to finish a portion and a half. Obviously, she could solve every math problem perfectly. Yet she still spent 200 yuan to hire me as her tutor. After I was accepted into university, I received a message from her. "Mum, I wish you happiness. I passed the entrance exam for the county's #1 high school, but my father refused to let me go." A look of sheer disbelief plastered his face. "Go ask around this whole village and see if there is a single girl who demands to go to high school. Drop that thought right now. I've already arranged everything. Once the harvest is over, you're heading down south to work as a laborer. When you come back, we'll build a big, spacious house." Just as I was about to speak, he glared at me and landed a vicious kick squarely on my body. "Get out of my sight. I gave you life, I raised you. You owe me for the rest of your days." Waves of pain radiated through my body. I quietly crawled up, lifting a hand to wipe the trail of blood from the corner of my mouth. Still unsatisfied after kicking me, he dragged my mother out from where she was locked in the annex and beat her too. "Wives are for beating, dough is for kneading," he used to gloat. "As long as I beat that woman, this money-losing wretch of a daughter will have to bow her head, no matter how stubborn she is." As he beat my mother, he cast sideways glances at me. Seeing my continued silence, he cursed and stormed off. My mother didn't utter a single cry. She looked like nothing more than a breathing log. Outside the courtyard gates, my father and sister Akyu stood calculating my wages. My father demanded I send back 3,150 yuan a month, leaving 50 yuan for me to live on. Sister Akyu waved her hands repeatedly, explaining that the big bosses in the city were picky. I would have to learn massage techniques first, and only when I was skilled would I be given a price. I couldn't earn that much right from the start. After talking a bit more, their hands started getting touchy. Sister Akyu laughed flirtatiously and pushed my father outside. He dug into his pockets and pulled out a handful of crumpled bills, barely scraping together 48 yuan. Only then did she half pull him along. I shouldered my carrying pole and walked alone toward the head of the village. A hard clod of dirt flew over and struck my forehead. One of my eyes immediately went dark. Acting on reflex, I clutched my head and squatted down. A little boy in split-crotch pants spat in my direction. "Get lost, you dirty thing." Sister Akyu was the beauty of the surrounding 10 miles and 8 villages. Her parents had 3 daughters in a row before finally getting a son they named Adhere too. She was the second child. Before even finishing primary school, she went south to work. In less than 2 years, she built a 3-story concrete house in the village, bigger than many houses in the county town. At first, it was a time of immense pride for her family. But later, a fellow villager working in the same city couldn't hold it in, and revealed the truth. She was a lady of the night. That news sent shockwaves through our small village. During the Lunar New Year that year, the cries of a woman echoed from the concrete house for 3 days and 3 nights. Ultimately, she was kicked out, left to huddle in the straw-roofed pigsty next door. People called her filthy. Yet the concrete house built with the money she earned was considered clean, meaning she had no right to step inside. Sister Akyu was truly filial. She still sent money home every month, and dutifully stayed in that pigsty every winter. Initially, the villagers despised her, but later on, the girls who followed her south all changed their fortunes. By then, people only dared to whisper behind her back. In a narrow village, news travels fast. The moment Sister Akyu stepped into my father's room, the gossip had already spread across the neighborhood. I raised my carrying pole, threatening to strike the little boy. He let out a shriek and ran away. The sounds of beatings drifted from the neighboring house. Even though the doors were shut, the voices carried clearly. "Are you going or not? Are you going? You make a little money, and now you think you're better than us." "Dad, I don't want to go. They beat me. Even the boss won't leave me alone." Sob. "Dad, I'm begging you." "Oh, Mum is kneeling to beg you." "I'll kneel down, okay? If you don't go make money, where will we get the tuition for your brother and the bride price for your younger brother?" "My child, I'm already kneeling. How can you be so unfilial? How can your heart be so hard?" I dropped my bucket into the well. It fell quickly, but when I pulled it up, it felt as heavy as a boulder. The girl's tragic cries tore through the night, as if she were mourning her own fate. Fine, I'll go. I'll go obediently. I bit my lip hard. The rope slipped from my hands and the bucket plummeted back to the bottom of the well. When I returned to the yard, my father and sister Akyu had finished. She spoke languidly. That Fandi girl is so good at studying, you might as well just marry her off. Why do you insist she comes with me? I've asked around the 8 villages. The highest bidder is only offering 6,600 for a one-time buyout. Now that building a concrete house costs 2,000. I won't do a losing deal. But that girl is stubborn. Don't let her hang herself like the girl at the end of the village. I had to pay a hefty compensation last time. My father sneered. What's there to worry about? Tomorrow I'll starve her and give her drugs before she gets on the train. Once she's there, she have to accept it whether she wants to or not. The annex fell silent for a long time. Sister Akiyu chuckled softly. You really are ruthless enough. The house was old, the doors dilapidated, and the wind howled through every crack. I sat in the side room, quietly listening to it all. On the bed, my mother suddenly burst into laughter, laughing until tears fell. Her belly was slightly swollen. I couldn't even remember which child this was, only that it was a pity they were all girls, unable to carry on my father's family line. Not a single one had survived. I didn't dare approach her. My mother didn't love me. I knew that. Darkness fell quickly. My mother and I shared a piece of black steamed bun. My father locked the kitchen door and went out to drink. My mother pulled out 10 patties worth of food stamps from under her blanket, turning her face away in utter disgust. Get out. I froze in place. She delivered a resounding slap to my face and roared fiercely. Get out right now. Wearing nothing but a thin shirt, I stumbled out the door. At the village entrance stood a woman, her large gold earrings catching the moonlight. Seeing me, she softly exhaled a puff of smoke. My legs gave out, and I slumped to the ground. Sister Akyu narrowed her eyes, smiling. Little Fandi, where are you planning to run off to? The summer dawn was still chilly. I wrapped my torn black jacket tightly around myself, exhaling a trembling breath. I suddenly remembered that Sister Akyu had also passed the entrance exam for the county's #1 high school years ago. She had been the valedictorian. It was a pity that the past was too distant, and no one ever spoke of it anymore. I walked for 5 hours along the mountain roads and squatted in front of the school gates. This drew the attention of the security guards. The captain had a scar across his face and one cloudy white eye. His flashlight beam swept over me twice. What are you doing here? I shrank back, my voice trembling. I'm here to enroll. I passed the exams, I really did. He didn't say a word, merely taking off his uniform coat and draping it over my shoulders. You're too early. The gates open at 7. A gaunt woman wearing a coat came out to open the door of a sparse office. The lights turned on inside, followed by the sounds of heated arguments and hands slamming on desks. I stood outside, waiting anxiously. The school year had already started half a month ago. I was terrified of being scolded, and even more terrified of being chased away. The woman stepped out, her expression stoic. We still have meetings tomorrow. Go sleep in the dormitory for now. I followed her, watching her unlock a room, and obediently curled up on the wooden board bed. She glanced at me a few times, said nothing, but brought me a cotton quilt. I buried myself under it, my eyes wide open. Would they let me stay, or not? I felt like a sheep waiting for slaughter. A vast meadow lay before me, but I couldn't manage to graze on a single blade of grass. My heart felt like it was frying in boiling oil. I watched the sun rise in the distance as the cicadas' songs echoed across the earth. Perhaps an hour had passed. Perhaps a whole day. The door deciding my fate finally opened. The woman walked in, looking exhausted, holding a lunchbox of dumplings. I bowed my head. Dumplings for sending off guests, noodles for welcoming them back. I understood this rule. Tears streamed down my face. I choked out, Teacher, could I just stand outside a classroom door and take a look? Just for a little bit. No? I cried harder, unable to hold back. But my mouth didn't stop either. In 2 or 3 bites I devoured everything. I didn't even have time to dip the dumplings in vinegar. The woman coldly gathered the empty lunchbox, stood up, glanced at me, and a faint smile tugged at her lips. If you don't go to class when the bell rings, you'll be punished by having to copy textbooks. Thanks to the teachers turning a blind eye, I was allowed to study at the #1 high school. The hard part wasn't the studying. It was eating. Students from the villages brought their own grain rations every month, while city students received food stamp subsidies. Only I had just 10 catties of food stamps, which only lasted 8 days. I was so hungry my calves trembled. The school gave a scholarship of 30 yuan a month. 2 steamed buns cost 50 cents. 3 tails of rice cost 1 yuan. At 13 or 14 years old, with absolutely no fat or oil in my stomach, even a young girl could eat a whole cow. Every day I was so starved I felt faint. I had to run to the bathroom to drink tap water. The water made my belly swell, and with every movement I could hear it sloshing inside. By the end of the month, I had exactly 1 yuan and 50 cents left in my pocket. I picked all the wild greens on the school sports field to eat, but it still wasn't enough to fill me. I stumbled around the bathroom area, my mind filled with visions of fragrant meat buns. Suddenly, I crashed into a girl with a round, pleasant figure. She wore a pretty hair clip and an exquisitely tailored dress, clearly designer clothes. She fell to the ground with an ah. I frantically apologized, bending down to help her up. But as the water in my stomach shifted, I gagged, my eyes rolled back, and I collapsed onto the ground. The girl screamed, "Mom!" My vision started to blur. I moved my lips. I really want to eat braised pork. The girl let out another scream, threw herself onto me, and started sobbing. "Mom! Mom! Don't die, Mom!" In my daze I thought, whose silly daughter is this? Running into me is just the worst luck in the world. A crowd gathered and carried me to the infirmary. The girl even stuffed a creamy white rabbit candy into my mouth. The school doctor sternly criticized me for enduring hardship alone, without asking the teachers for help, ruining my health in the process. Yet, he secretly placed half a tin of malted milk powder next to my right hand. The girl I bumped into clung to me and refused to leave, introducing herself as Sichu Deem Deem. She followed me all the way into the classroom, sat down next to me, and no matter how I tried to shoo her away, she wouldn't budge. When I handed her a test paper, she handed me a bowl of braised pork. When I helped her take notes, she handed me a bowl of meat dumplings. Even when I helped her throw away eraser shavings, she found an excuse to give me a few white rabbit milk candies. Overwhelmed with panic, I quietly buttoned the top button of my shirt. Every time class ended, I would tutor her lecturing until she would bolt out of the classroom the second the bell rang. Worried about my mother, I sneaked back to the village during the autumn break. The fortune teller who determined the sex of fetuses had come again. She contentedly stroked an old hen, smiling inwardly like a fox. "Congratulations, looks like it's a boy. The Tien family finally has an heir." My father was overjoyed. He looked up at the sky and declared, "Where did that money-losing wretch die off to? How am I supposed to figure out the money for building a house and my son's bride price?" He sat by the door, smoked half a pack of cigarettes, and muttered, "No, I have to find her. Otherwise, where will the money come from?" I felt as if I had fallen into an ice cellar, my mouth clamped shut, not even daring to breathe too heavily. He grabbed the remaining eggs in the house and went off to boast about the good news. I slipped into the annex. My mother looked even more emaciated than before, her teeth almost entirely gone. The moment I touched her hand, she swung a rolling pin at me. She smiled coldly, rubbed her belly, and asked, "You're about to have a baby brother. Are you happy?" I stammered, too afraid to speak. She grabbed my hand like a drowning person clutching a straw. "Get out! Don't come back! Don't ever come back here! Get lost!" I was chased out by my mother. I didn't dare knock on the door for fear others might hear. If I were discovered, I would never escape this small village again. I could only softly call out, "Mum." Suddenly, a hand yanked me into the bushes. A late summer cicada let out a weak chirp. In the underbrush, only the sound of 2 hearts beating wildly remained. Thump. Thump. I was just about to open my mouth to bite down when the person behind me gently shushed me, pointing toward the end of the village. My father was gleefully walking down the dirt path. Sichu Deem Deem and I stared at each other in stunned silence for a long time. I looked at the small car parked behind her. "What are you doing here?" Sichu Deem Deem looked at the sky, then at the ground, refusing to meet my eyes. "Just came down to the countryside to buy some eggs. It's not because I was worried about you or anything." My eyes suddenly stung. I dazedly reached up to wipe the moisture from my cheeks. I realized I was crying. Sichu Deem Deem said something to the driver, then awkwardly used a handkerchief to wipe my tears. "All right. If you cry any more, you'll look like a calico cat. Stop crying, this handkerchief cost 300 yuan. I'm sorry. I'll work part-time to pay you back." You really are like my own mother. Wanna go eat at the state-owned restaurant? I want braised pork. Sichu Deem Deem took me to her home. Everyone in the Sichu family was warm and welcoming, taking turns stuffing red envelopes into my hands. Mother Sichu even held up a piece of designer fabric against me, her voice full of smiles. Just a small token of appreciation. Thank you for tutoring Deem Deem. Rest assured and stay here. I just love pretty little girls. Me? Tutoring? My usually sluggish brain immediately went into overdrive. Sichu Deem Deem's grades in the sciences were terrible. Unable to stand it, I would casually explain a few questions to her after finishing my own work. Seeing Mother Sichu's joyful expression, I made a silent vow. From now on, I must never secretly curse Sichu Deem Deem as a pig or an idiot again. I must remember this. That evening, the adults of the Sichu family were all gathered, and I sat there feeling incredibly awkward. At midnight, I woke up starving. Not daring to touch the food in the kitchen, I sneaked out to the yard to dig up wild greens. The shepherd's purse was tender and fresh, the dandelions lush and green. I kept my head down and ate, eating until I forgot everything else. Just as I was squatting and eating off the ground, a neat shoulder furrow sent me rolling. Hearing the commotion, Sichu Deem Deem ran out, screaming in panic. A thief. I struggled to lift my head, and only then did she realize it was me. Looking at the half-eaten shepherd's purse still in my hand, I stammered, "Brother, let her go. She's one of us." Her older brother's name was Sichu Kaide. Just a few days ago, he had stubbornly insisted on transferring from the front lines back to the county to work as a police officer. He had come home expecting a scolding, but unexpectedly caught a guest sneaking wild greens. Sichu Deem Deem patted her chest in relief. "Next time you're hungry, just go to the kitchen and grab some biscuits. Eating wild greens raw isn't sanitary." Sichu Kaide frowned and mixed a bowl of malted milk for me. It was so deliciously sweet that it took all my willpower not to bend down and lick the bowl clean. The next day, I was woken up by the swooshing sound of a leather belt cracking. Sichu Deem Deem reached under her pillow, pulled out a chocolate bar, and handed it to me. "Eat up." I didn't refuse. After eating, I hauled her up and started teaching math. Her head bobbed with sleepiness. She couldn't even answer what 3 plus 2 was. I scratched my head, taking a deep breath in near despair. "How are you ever going to pass the college entrance exams like this?" Sichu Deem Deem stuck her tongue out. "My mom just wants me to be safe and healthy. That's enough. It doesn't matter whether I get in or not." She looked at me, but it felt like she was speaking to someone else. I nodded. "That's true, your family is well off. You can always buy a job later. My mom used to be a great student. If it weren't for that man, she definitely would have gone to university." Her voice carried a deep, hidden resentment that made me involuntarily shiver. Could it be that Mother Sichu hadn't gone to university? Countless questions arose in my heart, but I chose to remain silent. That day, Sichu Deem Deem was distracted. In the afternoon, she mysteriously led me to the textile factory. When I saw her about to exchange 100 yuan for 1,000 catties of fabric scraps, I was so terrified my whole body shook. Sichu Deem Deem grabbed my hand and patted it reassuringly. "Come on, let your daughter experience what it feels like to be a second-generation rich kid." Sichu Deem Deem started spouting nonsense again, leaving me no choice but to lunge forward and cover her mouth. Those strips of fabric scraps transformed into hair ties, and then into stacks of cash. Sichu Deem Deem giggled, lifted my chin, and pushed a duffel bag full of money in front of me. "This is your share." I shook my head like a rattle drum. No. How could I accept this much money? I don't deserve it." Sichu Deem Deem scoffed. "Doing business means splitting the dividends, or do you look down on my money?" She shook her head smugly. "You have to treat me to a meal. It has to be wontons with top-grade shepherd's purse and fresh pork, mixed with peeled shrimp." I bought 10 catties of fresh pork, 3 catties of fresh shrimp, and brought the shepherd's purse I had traded with the vegetable vendor, marching proudly to the gate of the small house. Sichu Kaide limped over to open the door and silently took the groceries. That night, I ate the most delicious shrimp, pork, and shepherd's purse wontons of my life. Even my hiccups tasted like happiness. The autumn break lasted exactly a week. I didn't return to the village, but instead carried bags of hair ties and peddled them all over the county. On the last day, I counted the money 3 times before announcing an unbelievable figure. Even Mother Che, hearing the news, rushed over and gave me a thumbs up. You're quite the businesswoman. You're a 10,000 yuan earner now. Sichu Deem giggled and pulled a stack of cash from under the bed. Mom, you get a share too. Mother Sichu was clearly deeply shocked. It took her a long time to manage 2 words. That's wonderful. Sichu Deem forced Sichu Kaide to accompany me to deposit the money. She had her own logic. It's not safe for the 2 of us to carry this much cash. Having my brother as a bodyguard gives me peace of mind. I had a sudden realization and nodded furiously. A hint of awkwardness flashed across Sichu Kaide's tanned face. At the credit union, I discovered that I didn't have a household registration. So we rushed to make one. How old are you? What is your name? Sichu Deem answered quickly on my behalf. Exactly 18. Born in July. In reality, I was only 16. But Sichu Deem mumbled that one is only considered an adult at 18, and that way. My father could never force me to go south again. I trusted her. The clerk stared at me. The name Tian Fandi felt like burning coals in my mouth. I couldn't utter it. Sichu Deem meant the precious pearl in everyone's hands. Sichu Kaide carried the family's expectations for a bright future. As for my name, Tian Fandi, its sole purpose was to summon a son, adhere, to carry on the Tian family line. This contrast made me want to cry from the injustice. An auntie pointed at me and yelled, "Isn't this old Kwok Tru's girl? Fande. What are you doing here?" Sichu Deem bared her teeth at the woman. "Auntie, do you know why Zhao Ming's grandfather lived to be 91? Because he minded his own business." The auntie stomped off in a huff. We didn't know that once she left. She started cursing. That little brat dares to talk back. I'll have to find old Kwok Tru and give him a piece of my mind. Isn't your mother's surname also C8U? Sichu Deem patted my shoulder magnanimously. Then from now on, your surname is CHU too. We're family. I involuntarily thought of my mother locked in the annex, and my father who cared for nothing in his entire life but passing on his bloodline. Could someone like me truly have a family? I bit my lip. Tears soaking the household registration paper. Sichu Deem patted my head and let out a long, heavy sigh. From then on, Sichu Deem always brought 2 portions of food. She claimed she needed to maintain her figure, so I had to help her finish a portion and a half. Sichu Deem was a kind-hearted child, and the Sichu family adults were good people. Hidden at the bottom of my rice bowl was always a piece of braised pork, the soft, fatty skin dripping with glossy sauce. So delicious I wanted to lick the bowl clean. One evening during self-study, Sichu Deem secretly dragged me outside. She blindfolded me, led me into the Sichu family courtyard, and then let go. My vision suddenly burst with light. Confetti cannons popped behind my back and colorful paper fluttered down, landing on my head. Sichu Deem held a birthday cake, jumping around like a little deer. Happy birthday! The adults of the Sichu family stood up in unison and clapped. Sichu Kaide, after getting his foot stomped on by Sichu Deem, reluctantly sang the happy birthday song. I was stunned. Everyone took turns giving me presents. Even Father Sichu, who was usually stern and rarely smiled, managed a stiff smile and shoved a prepared red envelope into my hands. Sichu Deem lit the candles and urged me to blow them out. I clasped my hands together and closed my eyes. I hope my mother finds happiness. I hope the good people of the Sichu family are rewarded. May everyone live to be 100. I blew out the candles. Sichu Deem kept pestering me to tell her what I wished for. I raised an eyebrow and giggled. It's a secret. The cake was so sweet. I gorged myself on it. Sichu Deem was very careless. She could solve the hard problems but lost points on the easy ones. Every day after finishing my work, I helped her compile her mistakes, filling up 3 notebooks, barely managing to pull her math grade up to an average level. The number 1 high school only had 1 physical education class a week. Sichu Deem never participated, and the teacher didn't care. I quietly ran laps around the field alone. 3 laps meant free time, and I had to hurry back to finish the rest of my practice test papers. Fandi! Fandi! A boy's voice calling from beyond the wall startled me. Instinctively, I turned to run, as if fleeing from something. Teen Fandi! He used my old name directly. Come here right now. I reluctantly stopped. A shift-eyed boy was clinging to the wall, his gaze calculating. Fandi, auntie is dying. Uncle Ba refuses to pay for medicine. Do you have any money? I lost all reason, my voice trembling. Where is she now? He pouted. Where else? Lying on the brick, of course. Without taking time to return to class, I hastily asked for a leave of absence, grabbed the 200 yuan in cash I had been hiding, and ran all the way back. Sitting on the bus, my mind was in turmoil. My mother was sick and needed treatment. 200 yuan wasn't enough. I still had 10,000 in the credit union. If the county hospital couldn't cure her, we would go to Beiping. I tried to recall what my mother used to look like, but realized all she had ever left me was a cold, distant silhouette. When I reached the village entrance, the village matchmaker stopped me with a squinty smile, casually squeezing my arm. Oh my, city feng shui really does nourish people. Little Fan Di has filled out nicely. You'll definitely give birth to a son. I slapped her hand away and hurried off. Taking an 8,000 bride price and already acting so high and mighty. You're just a money-losing wretch anyway. I pushed the courtyard door open hard. My father sat on the threshold, spitting as he counted money. My mother lay on the bed, her clothes unable to cover her bulging belly. I rushed into the annex and with a trembling hand, checked her breathing. Only after a long while did I let out a sigh of relief. I turned back around. My father had finished counting the money. A fake smile plastered on his face. Fandy, I know you're a filial daughter. It's good that you're back. Stop going to school, it's too hard. I found a good match for you. As long as you give birth to a son, you'll be the master of that house. Looking at his hypocritical face, I only felt nauseous. Never. My father froze, his benevolent facade instantly vanishing. He slapped me hard across the face. Are you rebelling? How dare you talk back to me? My eyes fell on the iron chain fixed to the wall. I refused to be like my mother, a caged bird singing in despair. How much money did you get? 8,008. Build the house first, the rest is the bride price. My father clicked his tongue, looking at me with utmost contempt. Women really do make money easily, not like us men. My hand gripped the white rabbit milk candy Sichu Deem Deem had given me that morning. I have money. After I go to university, I'll make a lot of money. What does that have to do with me? My father let out a bizarre laugh. If you have money, you give it to me. Your bitch of a mother probably hates my guts, doesn't she? You traitorous wretch. Even if you have a bright future later, you're still in the palm of my hand right now. He gloated. My mother struggled to sit up. The short chain meant she could only kneel on the bed. She grabbed the rolling pin and slammed it into the back of my father's neck with all her might. Her entire body shook, her teeth chattering loudly. I caught my collapsing mother and slipped the milk candy into her mouth. Mum, don't be afraid. I'm here. I chained my father to the wall using that very same chain. In the distance, flames flared up, and urgent shouts filled the air. They were searching for the lost wife and daughter. As for me, I was taking my mother to find freedom. I carried my mother, my steps steady. The firelight drew closer, and my strength began to wane. My mother patted my back, her voice uncharacteristically gentle. Put me down. You are still young. You have a future. 2 headlight beams swept over us. I saw a familiar silhouette. She sprinted toward me, her lips moving. I strained to hear. Mum, don't be afraid. I'm here. Sichu Kaidi's eyes were red. He had clearly been crying. Sichu Deem Deem patted his shoulder and made a silly face. Sichu Kaida laughed, but the laugh sounded like a sob. I held my mother tight, wanting to make up for the hugs I'd missed for 16 years. The county town slowly came into view. My mother's usually hunched back suddenly straightened. She spoke in clear, unaccented Mandarin, as calm as if laying down a final verdict. I want to go to the hospital. The car hit a bump. Everyone else in the vehicle deliberately held their breath. Can't you make the decision? My mother smiled faintly. Then let me talk to the adults. My mother went into the small house and spoke with Father and Mother Sichu for a long time. When she stepped out, Mother Sichu was crying so hard she couldn't stand, and Father Sichu's eyes were red. Mother Sichu rubbed my head, her voice choked with tears. Good girl. You're such a good girl. My mother was taken into the operating room. 3 hours later, her belly was flat again. She had returned to being herself solitary and free. Sichu Deem Deem linked her arm through mine and pulled me into a secluded corner. A brand new letter of introduction was pressed into my hand. Sichu Deem Deem knew what I had been inquiring about lately. She hadn't said a word, but had quietly arranged everything. I looked up in disbelief. Sichu Deem Deem's eyes were shimmering with tears just like mine. Auntie Sichu can only truly be free this way. She hugged me and gently patted my back. Don't be afraid, you still have me. I silently wiped my tears and beamed. Yeah, this is wonderful. Truly wonderful. On the day my mother left, I was the only one who went to see her off. The train station was still quite crowded in the early dawn. My mother and I stood a few meters apart. Just like before. The train whistle blared. My mother cast a glance at me. I couldn't fully comprehend the meaning behind that look. It contained pain, disgust, and attachment, but there was absolutely no reluctance to part. I smiled, draped a cotton-padded coat over her shoulders, took her hand, and tucked it into the stiff pocket. Her eyes flickered. I shook my head and gently pushed her toward the train. Go, Mom, don't look back. Don't ever come back. Go. After my mother left, I lost a bit of my spirit. Sichu Deem Deem became even lazier, skipping class every few days. We were in the honors class, and I didn't want her to fall behind. In class, I studied fiercely. After class, I helped Sichu Deem Deem copy the keynotes, and at night, I clumsily tutored her. Sichu Deem Deem lay on her bed. Whenever she couldn't answer a question, she would stuff a milk candy into my mouth. Only after I managed to unstick the chewy candy from my teeth would she pretend to write down an answer. By the final exams of our sophomore year, Sichu Deem Deem's grades hadn't dropped but actually improved. I also claimed the top spot in the entire grade. Sichu Deem Deem's health was poor. I couldn't afford to be lazy alongside her. I pedaled my sewing machine until it practically smoked, earning a tidy sum before New Year's Eve. Carrying a bag of money and 10 catties of pork, I rushed back to the Kichu residence. Sichu Deem Deem loved shepherd's purse wontons the most. I had to fight tooth and nail with 3 aunties at the market just to snatch those greens. Before I even reached the door, I saw the courtyard was in chaos. Mother Sichu was leaning against Sichu Kaide, sobbing uncontrollably. Father Sichu took off his glasses, rubbing his reddened eyes. Nurses and doctors were carrying Sichu Deem Deem out on a stretcher. The girl who once had slightly chubby cheeks was now gaunt. Her rosy lips had turned blue. Her emaciated hand dangled off the stretcher, swaying back and forth, back and forth. I dug all the money out of my pockets, my hands shaking so violently that bills scattered all over the ground. I have money. I have money. I grabbed Mother Sichu's hem. Please save her. Mother Sichu hugged me, her tears falling drop by drop onto my forehead. She said, don't be afraid, she's going to be okay. Sichu Deem Deem was in the emergency room for a full day and night. However long she was in there, I stood outside the door just as long. I wondered if I was simply too useless. Did my good karma only stretch far enough to win my mother's freedom, leaving none to keep Sichu Deem Deem safe? Outside the window, fireworks bloomed. Rich or poor, happy or not, everyone was gathering together to ring in the new year. They were with their families. As for me, it seemed I only had Sichu Deem Deem left. Sichu Deem Deem's finger twitched slightly. I gently held her hand. I figured I had no worldly attachments and my only hobby was eating. If Sichu Deem Deem could be healthy, I wouldn't mind starving to death. Sichu Deem Deem opened her eyes. Father and Mother Sichu rushed to her side. Even the quiet Sichu Kai Dad dashed to the hospital bed. I quietly retreated out the door, popped the last fruit candy from my pocket into my mouth, and waited. Just as the candy had almost melted away, Sichu Kaide pointed toward the hospital room. Father and Mother Sichu stood outside, forcing out strained smiles. Sichu Deem Deem was calling for me. Her voice was as clear as a canary's. Why are you looking so gloomy? Sichu Deem Deem glared at me. Can't bear to leave me? I laughed through my tears. What nonsense are you talking about? Sichu Deem Deem scoffed proudly. Don't be so melodramatic. What if I get married later? Are you planning to follow me then too? It's not good for the two of us to stay glued together forever. I nodded, my eyes brimming with tears. Fine by me. I'll follow you to your new house and be your old nanny. Sichu Deem Deem visibly shuddered and stuck her tongue out, pretending to gag. Visiting hours were very short, so the Sichu family and I had to leave the hospital. The road back to the Sichu courtyard and the road back to the #1 high school were in opposite directions. I politely said my goodbyes and headed toward the school. Mother Sichu called out to me. She smiled. Little Sichu, Auntie already considers you her own daughter. Remember to come home often, hear me? I didn't dare look back, only waving my hand at her. When I shoved my hands into my pockets, I felt half a bag full of candy. A few muffled sobs dissolved into the wind and blew far away. With Sichu Deem not around, I poured all my energy into studying. I bought a flashlight from the flea market, so I could sit in the corner of the stairwell and read after lights out. I heard the cutoff score for the medical university in Jing City was very high. If I worked extraordinarily hard, could I cure Sichu Deem? Rubbing medicated oil under my eyes to stay awake, I lost myself in wild fantasies. Teacher Lai stood at the classroom door and called out to me, who was studying so intently, I'd forgotten the world around me. She led me to a corner and let out a long, heavy sigh. There are two men making a scene at the school gates. One says he's your husband, the other says he's your father. Her sharp gaze pierced straight through me. Do you know them? My first reaction was to tremble. My lips wouldn't stop shaking. Teacher Lai said patiently, their surname is Tien, yours is Chu. How could he be your father? I suddenly looked up. A fleeting smile crossed Teacher Lai's cold face before quickly vanishing. I marched fiercely to the school gates. My father, his head still wrapped in gauze, was rolling around in front of the guardhouse. My obedient daughter has been corrupted by all of you. Ignoring the duties of a wife, abandoning her husband and father, just insisting on coming here to study. The thug beside him sneered. Studying? Who knows what kind of indecent things she's doing in there? Better to come home with me. I'll teach her some morals myself. I laughed out of sheer anger and shouted, lies. You say I'm your eldest daughter, and he says I'm his wife. So what exactly is my name? My father and the thug stared blankly at each other. My father stammered, Tien Fandi, what else? I turned to ask Uncle Vuong, the captain of the guards. Uncle Vuong, what is my name? Tell them. Uncle Vuong leaned on his baton and smiled warmly. Sichu Nuthi, the star of wisdom of the sophomore class, ranked number 1 in the whole grade. Who doesn't know that? My father and the thug were dumbfounded. You changed your name. My father flushed red, pointing at me and cursing my lack of filial piety. Do you have any proof this girl is your daughter? Teacher Lai stood in front of me. Her thin frame couldn't hide me entirely, but I could clearly see the color draining from my father's face. Only now did he realize what a massive mistake it was to deem his daughter unworthy of being registered in the household book. Uncle Vuong didn't give him a chance to regret it, charging forward with his baton raised. I didn't look back, walking straight back to class. Cries of agony echoed behind me. I smiled softly. The chains that had weighed me down for so many years were finally removed. I felt so light I wanted to jump for joy. Teacher Lai looked at me with concern. I'm fine, I smiled. There was just a very difficult math problem and I finally solved it. Sichu Deem stayed in the hospital for a long time, only returning when senior year started. The teachers all advised her to repeat her sophomore year. Sichu Deem holed up in the teacher's office for a day, took a mock exam, and placed in the top 100 of the grade. She put her hands on her hips and looked at me, who was carrying 2 backpacks, with a smug expression. Don't look down on a poor youth. Who am I? I am Sichu Deem. I rested my chin on my hand and replied perfunctorily, wow, so amazing. Sichu Deem threw her arm around my neck, her tone threatening. You have to tutor me, or else I turned my head, or else what? She gritted her teeth. Or else I won't sit next to you anymore. So childish. I clutched the mistaker tracking notebook in my bag and gave a soft HMPH. After Sichu Deem returned to school, I often walked her back to the small courtyard, and gradually, I was given my own room there. It had floral bedsheets and a study desk by the window which I saw Sichu Kaide build with his own hands. Mother Sichu even tried to give me 200 yuan for tutoring. I shook my head adamantly, seizing any chance to slip away. But every time I bought fish or meat to bring back, she adamantly refused to cook it. I'd look at the still flapping fish, almost in tears. If the fish goes bad, it won't be tasty anymore. Mother Sichu would stuff the money into my pocket. When I tried to return it, one glare from her and I'd immediately retract my hand. She would snort coldly, then hum a tune as she walked into the kitchen. I'd turn around to catch Sichu Deem standing behind me, giggling. The more money Mother Sichu gave me, the more diligently I visited the market. Throughout our senior year, aside from studying, all Sichu Deem and I cared about was eating. Steamed mutton, bear paw, mock deer tail, roast duck, stewed chicken, roast goose, roast suckling pig. I ate endlessly, wishing I could lick the plates clean. Even Sichu Kaida had to loosen his belt by a notch. As the college entrance exams drew near, Sichu Deem grew increasingly anxious. The day before the exams, she held my hand tightly. Don't run around. After the exams, just stay at school. Absolutely do not go anywhere. I was about to tease her, but seeing her so serious that her teeth were chattering, I replied, okay. But I didn't keep my word. Right after the final subject ended, someone came running up breathlessly. Sichu Deem was taken to the hospital. They say she might not make it. I grabbed my bag and ran after them, only to be struck by a club in a blind alley. When I regained consciousness, a pimple-covered face was hovering inches from mine. I screamed and headbutted him hard. The ox cart bumped along toward the inner village. My father sat up front, still sporting his old habit of spitting as he counted money. Just like 3 years ago. The thug held his head, groaning. Old man, your daughter gave me a concussion. My father calmly held out his hand. I've accepted the 18,000 in bride price. She's your wife now. Do whatever you want. The thug rubbed his hands and leered at him. You got it, father-in-law. Quietly, I used a small knife hidden behind my back to cut the ropes, then punched him straight in the face. My father heard the commotion and turned around. I immediately struck him down too. All that meat and fish I'd eaten hadn't just turned into fat, and those few years of practicing martial arts weren't for nothing. The thug tried to fight back, but another blow from me silenced him completely. I wasn't an idiot. When a stranger came calling, how could I not know it was a trap? Targeting me was one thing, but daring to curse Sichu Deem with death, that meant we had to have a clear talk. I looked at the 2 men slumped on the cart, then glanced down at my newly bought warrior shoes. I turned and pulled the rolling pin out of my backpack. If their so-called continuing the family line meant harming others, I might as well settle this once and for all. I jumped off the ox cart, humming the song Sichu Deem taught me. You are my little apple. I can never love you enough. The ox, following the green grass, wandered toward the edge of the cliff, accompanied by 2 agonizing screams as boulders tumbled down the precipice. I licked my lips. Suddenly, I really craved some braised beef. By the time I returned to the courtyard carrying the braised beef, the house was in utter chaos. Father Sichi was frowning as he made a phone call. Mother Sichi was covering her mouth, sobbing uncontrollably. Sichu Deem sat in a chair clutching her chest, and even Sichu Kaida had an electric baton strapped to his waist. I knocked on the door. Mother Sichi rushed over and smacked my arm hard. You wretched girl. Where were you wandering off to instead of coming home? I grinned. I was really craving braised beef. I had to line up forever to buy it. It was almost snatched away from me. Father Sichu furrowed his brows and looked at me. I looked back at him solemnly. As long as you're safe. That's what matters. Father Sichu nodded to Sichu Kaide. The kids had a hard time finishing their exams. We should eat something good to celebrate. Sichu Deem let out a cheer, threw her arms around Father Chichu and acted spoiled for a bit. Sichu Kaida had an urgent matter and had to leave, not returning until late at night. The siblings whispered at the door for a long time. And then a cool body sneaked into my bed. I sat up, turned off the fan, and grabbed Sichu Deem's hand. You need to take better care of your health. Sichu Deem stuck out her tongue, then suddenly blurted out, Can I call you Mom? I was severely shocked. Had Sichu Deem still not kicked this habit of randomly claiming people as relatives? Didn't Mother Sichu beat her for this? I really couldn't understand it. Looking into her large, watery eyes, I managed a difficult She wrapped around me like a caterpillar, resting her head on my shoulder. Mom, are you happy now? What kind of question is that? I frowned. Of course I'm happy. If you weren't clinging to me so tightly, I'd be even happier. Miss Chu, do you realize it's summer right now? Sichu Deem giggled as if we were doing something sneaky under the covers. Then later on, when Mum has a daughter, will you love her a lot? Will you love her more than you love me? I won't be jealous. Okay. Fine. I'll be a tiny bit jealous. Another bizarre question. I started seriously wondering if, while I wasn't paying attention, Sichu Deem had gone off to read some melodramatic trashy novels from a street stall. I didn't want to answer, But then Sichu Deem Deem's voice choked with quiet sobs. I patted her back. Alright. You are the baby I love the most. My one and only. There is no one else. Sichu Deem Deem was silent for a long time. Even my pajamas were stained wet in a small patch. No, Sichu Deem Deem sniffled. There has to be someone else. Otherwise Mum will be lonely. And I'll worry. I shot up into a sitting position. Sichu Deem Deem, what are you playing at? Don't think just because we won't be at the same university, I won't supervise your studies. I'll only be a 1-hour bus ride from your school. I'll come over every single day. Sichu Deem Deem pouted. You old busybody. I bared my teeth and glared, intending to pinch her cheek. But seeing her bluish lips, I lowered my hand. Fine. Go to sleep. Sichu Deem Deem murmured and hummed, clinging to me like a child. I sighed helplessly, grabbed a woven palm fan, and gently fanned her. During the wait for the university admission letters, the CHU household was unusually tense. Father Sichu took an extended leave of absence. Mother Sichu found a substitute teacher for her classes. And Sichu Kaide used up all his accumulated vacation days. The three of them were as one as if preparing for battle, making me feel nervous too. However, Sichu Deem Deem ate carefree, flitting about like a butterfly, hugging one person and kissing another. Outside the door, the postman's bicycle bell rang. The CHU family received 2 admission letters. I sprang up, so overjoyed my limbs felt clumsy. Mum, Sichu Deem Deem called to me, smiling radiantly. Fly away. Fly to a vaster sky. Don't ever come back. I thought she was just talking nonsense again. I took the letters from the door, turning my head to say something, but saw Sichu Deem Deem curled up in her chair, her eyes tightly shut. Her emaciated hand dangled off the side, swaying. I let out a wail. Mother Sichu wrapped her arms around me as I collapsed on the floor. She was crying so hard her body shook, yet she used every ounce of her remaining strength to comfort me. Nathi, breathe, child. Deem Deem tried her hardest, don't blame her. I crawled over numbly. Sichu Deem Deem's body was still soft, but her heartbeat was growing slower and slower. Father Chu took off his glasses and buried his face deep in his hands. The man who was tough as iron to the outside world actually knew how to cry. Sichu Kaidi's eyes were red. He handed me a pink envelope. This was what Sichu Deem Deem had been constantly clutching in her hands lately. I had asked to see it, but Sichu Deem Deem said she'd give it to me in a few days. I opened the envelope with trembling hands. The familiar handwriting had drawn a smiley face on the paper. I covered my mouth, laughing through my tears. She wrote that she was my daughter from another world. In that world, I never received this admission letter. Her biological father, who was my husband, was a scumbag. It was I who carried her on my back as a tiny baby, working to the bone just to survive. She wrote that she had prayed to the Bodhisattva for a very long time. If it meant her mother didn't have to suffer so much, she would accept never being born. She wrote that she had begged for a long time until the Bodhisattva finally manifested and sent her to this world. She babbled on and on, writing so much. I could almost picture her sitting at her desk, carefully writing each and every word. Yet she didn't write a single word about herself. I let out heavy, ragged breaths, my heart twisting in agony. So that was it. It turned out she didn't just have a habit of randomly claiming relatives. My child, my Deem Deem, you crossed thousands of miles, transcending life and death across 2 lifetimes, just to save your mother from hellfire. But, Bodhisattva, if you wanted a life, you should have taken mine. Why take hers? Mother Sichu held me tight. Her cries of mourning sounded so very far away. Epilogue. Sichu Deem Deem's Diary. September 1st, 199x. Mum suddenly came to school, her face covered in bruises, and ran up to hug me tight. Mum said my name is no longer Duong Lady. I will take my late grandmother's surname and be called Sichu Deem Deem. Mum said I am her only child. Deem Deem is very happy. August 17th, 200x. I got accepted into Wacken University. Mum was so happy she ransacked her wardrobe but still couldn't find an outfit that looked presentable. I stood outside a shopping mall handing out flyers for a month and a half, using all the money I earned to buy a silk kipao. Mum was too scared to touch it, afraid her calloused hands would ruin the fabric. I had to coax her for ages before she finally put it on. She scolded me for wasting money, but her eyes were red. That night, I pleaded with Mom to go to Beijing with me. You just sell things from a street stall here. There are way more people in Beijing. Come with me, Mom. Mom snapped. Why do you talk so much? Why keep clinging to me? Once you get married, you'll find me annoying. I loudly protested. No, I won't. I'll cling to you for the rest of my life. Even when I get married, I have to take Mom with me as my dowry. Mom smacked my hand. Do you think your old lady is your permanent nanny? Go to sleep, it's too hot. Mom didn't refuse, which means she agreed. March 12th, 201X. Mum fainted. The fellow street vendors took her to the hospital before calling me. I didn't even have time to ask for leave before rushing over. Mum was lying in bed, covered in all sorts of four tubes. The doctor called me outside. Your mother's condition is very critical. Irregular eating in her youth left underlying health issues. And now that she's seriously ill, she refused proper treatment and didn't take her medication regularly. You need to mentally prepare yourself. I cried until I was a complete mess. Mom even teased me for being ugly. Annoying old lady. September 1st, 201X. Mom is gone. The illness progressed too fast. I don't have a home in this world anymore. I prayed to all the gods and Buddhas in heaven and earth, hoping only that my mother wouldn't have to suffer so much. Even if it means I am never born, it's okay, truly. September 1st, 198X. Oh my god, I actually traveled back to the 1980s. My chest hurts a bit, and it's somewhat hard to breathe. Glancing at the calendar, there is still time. I jumped out of bed and acted spoiled with the mother of this body to beg for a school transfer. Father and Mother Sichu are strict, but surprisingly reasonable. Step 1 of the plan. Complete. September 15th, 198X. It was so funny, I almost knocked Mom flying. Mom is as skinny as a bamboo pole with a balloon tied to it. I brought Mom chocolate, and she nibbled it little by little like a small squirrel. She really is my mom. November 18th, 198X. Mom was called away. In my past life, Mom never said anything. But I know that was when my grandmother died. To save Mom, I had to tell the truth. Father CHU and Mother CHU both cried. My brother also sat in a corner wiping his tears, thinking I couldn't see. Actually, Deem is me. I hugged Mother CHU. The original girl had tried her best but couldn't hold on, so she asked me to take her place by her parents' side for a few more years. I finally saved my mom. Mother Sichi said she is very grateful to me, and my mom talking nonsense. Who knows what she means? She's my mom too. August 1st, 198X. My heart feels more and more uncomfortable. No matter how much medication I take, it can't be controlled. Father and Mother Sichi hide in their room and cry. My brother stays silent, and Mom is reading medical books. Haha. Mum always waits until the water reaches her feet before she jumps. It's too late, Mom. Oh, I forgot to mention. The so-called maternal grandfather and that father fell off a cliff. And now they just lie there drooling. Serves them right. It's just that. I'm going to disappear soon. I really can't bear to leave everyone. September 1st, 198X. I woke up dazed, surrounded by water. What's going on? Did I turn into a fish? Will Mom recognize me? Before I could think further, the world spun. I opened my eyes, everything a blur. A familiar voice rang in my ears. Honey, it's a girl. This birthmark. I leaned against a shoulder. Warm drops of water fell onto my forehead. Mom whispered softly, Baby, welcome back. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. I deeply appreciate your comments, feedback, and thoughts. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. See you in the next stories.